Okay, we had a little bit of some technical help, and I think we will just be ready to start in 1 minute.
Okay.
Hopefully that sounds a little bit better.
Yeah.
I know I've got one more person on the wait, and they're logging in. Okay, we'll get started. Well, thank you all so much for joining me. I know some of y'all will be arranging along with us, and some of you are just here to watch. So anytime you have a question, I'm going to have a few different question breaks throughout the night. And I would just like to thank all of our alumni of the College of Education and our friends who joined us tonight. We are looking to provide some new opportunities to interact and get to know each other as we enter 2021. And I'd also like to thank Jeff Francis for his generous production assistance and sponsorship of this class tonight. So he is one of our alums, and we're proud to have him. And now we'll get started. So if any of you are ready to make along with me, that will be great. If you want to turn your cameras on, you're welcome to do it. And if you're just watching, that's totally fine too. And we'll start with some basics and our tools, and then we'll get to experimenting with our flowers. So I've got my workstation kind of all set up. I use a Lazy Susan to help me make sure all sides of my arrangement are looking good. I've got some basic vases. These are from the dollar store, easy to find. A simple one, I'm sure many of you have these at home. And I also have a mint julep cup. These antique silver cups make beautiful vessels for flowers, and even an old tea tin. So I'll show you a little trick about how to turn metal containers like this into a vase for your arrangement. Another thing I have are these antique flower frogs. These help keep your flowers standing straight up in your vase. You can find them at antique stores or thrift stores, and some of them are caged like this, and some of them have these little metal teeth. So I'm going to use this one tonight, and we'll kind of show you the tricks of that later. And also, this was an extra supply on your list. This is just basic floral tape, and it is sticky when you mash it, but you have to make sure your vase isn't wet. So as soon as it gets wet, it doesn't stick anymore. And you can kind of do it in an X on the top of your vase to keep your plants in place. So this is kind of a way you could use that if you wanted to try using some tape, but you don't need it. It's just an extra. And then, of course, we have all of our beautiful flowers. So mine is kind of in this big bucket. I have some roses, some Alestromeria, some forsythia, all kinds of fun things in here. And all of these were purchased at Trader Joe's. So just a basic grocery store, nothing too special. And if you have a Publix, they have great flowers, or pretty much any store, you can make some awesome arrangements. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Does anyone have questions so far? Also, I forgot the most important part, your clippers. Everyone needs a great heavy-duty pair of flower shears if you want to make a hobby of arranging flowers, but a simple pair of scissors will do for your at-home arrangements. Let's switch back. So we've got our workstation. It's nice and clean. And today I am going to start with this kind of generic round vase. And how I'm going to begin is with this flower frog. I'm going to try not to make too much noise. He's really heavy. So I'm just going to put him down in the bottom. And what that does is it provides an anchor for our plants. But the shape of this vase helps it as well because it goes in So that helps keep your plants steady. And then if you have some of this flower food that came with some of your plants, you can just give that a good shake and pour it into your vase. So this makes sure that one's kind of hard. We might try a different one. Make sure that your flowers have lots of yummy food to eat while they're bringing joy to your home. And I'm going to add water last, so mine will be kind of dry for a little bit. But if you already have water in your vase, that is totally fine. Do we have it? We're all good. Do we have any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So what brings life to these grocery store flowers is the shapes and textures and excitement you put into the arrangement. So sometimes it's tempting. We go to the store and we buy our bouquet and we just take the plastic off and we put it right in the vase. And that is a fine thing to do. I am not bashing anyone's grocery store arrangements, but if we take some time and put a little bit of love into our arrangement, we can really end up with something very beautiful. And to me, it looks just as good as any arrangement you can purchase from a florist, and a lot cheaper too. So we love that. So I like to think about the shapes when I'm purchasing my flowers. And what we start with is a big focal flower. So this is a rose, kind of a garden rose variety. And these guys, you'll see some of them, they are just opening up so big and happy. So that's going to be my focal flower for today. So if you're looking at your pile of plants, whichever one has the biggest, brightest bloom, that's going to be your focal flower. And then I've chosen some greenery. We've got this guy. He comes pretty much in every group of flowers you buy from the grocery store. I've also got some cress. These are kind of, I thought they were springy. We needed a nice spring. It's been kind of rainy lately, so this one made me happy. But it has these little textured beads. I don't know if you can see it kind of, but it's almost like little polka dots on each plant. And that will give it some texture and an organic feel. And another thing you can think about is cones or points in your arrangement. So this is called Veronica, and it just adds a beautiful vertical. And when we mix up the horizontals and the verticals and all those different shapes in our arrangement, that's what brings it excitement and visual interest. And everyone will know this. This is a simple carnation. So he broke, so I'm gonna trim that guy. We'll use him later. But a trick with your carnations, if they're looking closed, like not fully open, you can kind of rub them in between your fingers like this, like you're starting a fire, and that will open these guys right up. And I don't know, some people hate carnations, but I think they are beautiful and easy to find. They always have pretty colors and nice blooms. Alestromeria, these are kind of lily-like. They have beautiful little spots inside, and these are pretty much at every grocery store in America. And we'll talk about how to get the longest vase life out of those. Just a few more. I've got some eucalyptus. I've got some tulips. This is called Crispidia, and I thought these were fun. They're like little bee antlers, bee antennas. So I like to buy fun things for my plants. And last but not least, I like to usually include a branch. So this is forsythia, and when these buds open up, they'll be bright yellow. You probably have some of that in your yard, which is another tip. So you don't have to go and spend a whole ton of money on plants and flowers and blooms. A lot of what is in season is right in your backyard. Camellias are really beautiful this time of year. Some of us have roses, we have hydrangeas. So just take a little neighborhood walk. And I think anything that grows on the sidewalk is fair game personally. So put your clippers in your pocket and you could come home with a bouquet.
I love it.
But you didn't hear it from me, maybe. That's just my sneaky tip. So I like to start with our greenery and building kind of, it's like the base of your arrangement. It's what everything else tucks into, and it gives you a good kind of starting layer to start with. So think about your greenery and your base layer. I'm going to start with some eucalyptus. Mine's kind of got these little seed pods that I think is really cool. And you'll hold it up to the side of your vase and see where you want it to rest, and then give it a diagonal trim. And that trim is going to help it soak up water all through that stem and stay pretty for a really long time. And if you have one of these flower frogs, you just kind of jam it down in there and it helps hold it up. This one's kind of heavy, so I'm going to have to put it on the other side. But I cut it a little too long, and that is one of the best flower tips. You can always trim off more, but you can't ever add stem back on. So if you cut it a little too long, that's okay. If you cut it too short, that's okay too. It's just plants. This guy's really heavy, so I'm going to have to take off a piece of him. And that's fine. We'll save it for our smaller arrangement. That's better. And then I think we'll add a little more over here, just kind of resting. So I like to think about, where is this pointing? This points out kind of to the side. And we'll copy those angles a little bit later. So let's add some more greenery. I'm going to add some of this cress. This has lots of stems, so don't be afraid to kind of trim it and break up some of these pieces if you want not quite all of this in your arrangement. It's a little too tall. And just give it a trim and stick it right in there. That's a little tall still. Oh, I got a loose leaf. So another thing to think about in your arrangements is anything that's below the water line that's a leaf, that will contribute to rot. So besides changing the water every day, keeping those leaves out of the bottom of the glass is the best thing you can do to keep your flowers lasting a really long time. So when we call it processing in the floral industry, but when you're processing your stems and trimming them up, this is when the Lazy Susan comes in handy. Think about which of those leaves are under the surface. And the best part about flowers is you do what you like. There's no real right or wrong way. Clean up my little mess. Do we have any questions so far? This is a good example of processing. So I think I like this greenery, but he's got a lot of leaves on him that we don't need. So I'm going to peel some of these off and then trim him to go in my vase about right here. So I've got some guys to the side, some guys to the top, and we're kind of getting ready to start adding some of our flowers. Okay. So let's talk for a second about tulips, because I know that tulips are some of the most favorite floral varieties. So tulips, when they start to age a little bit, they get this beautiful, almost like ballerina curve in their stem. And I think that is so gorgeous. So I like to look at the tulip and think about, where is it leaning? What can it echo? And to me, it kind of matches the curve of this branch. So I'm going to put this tulip first. I'm going to trim his little stem, a nice diagonal. and put him right here, leaning out, echoing that curve of that eucalyptus. And that's just his natural place to be. Someone once told me that each flower is like a star of the show. And when you're doing a family portrait, you want to see everyone's smiles and everyone's faces. So when you're putting your flowers in your plant arrangement, you want to think about, how am I seeing this flower's best face, which is his pretty side. And that's how you put them in. I'm going to put this guy kind of right up here. And he matches his friend. And then we've got this nice, tall, straight up tulip. I'm going to give him a good trim and put him right here, matching that crest. I'll come out. And since we're using some tulips, I have some in here that we need to peel some leaves off of. So I'll show us how to do that. So when you get the tulips from the store, they usually have these big protector leaves on, and you just want to gently kind of peel those right off and get those extra stringies. And that will give you a nice clean stem to work with. And tulips generally like at least an inch trim to soak up good water. Probably tell I love tulips. I'm going to add a lot of those. And I'm going to show you another little tulip trick. If you're very gentle, very careful, you can kind of peel each petal out, super soft. They break kind of easy, so you have to be a little bit careful. And this will give you the prettiest, brightest little bloom. And tulips kind of do this naturally as they age in the vase. But how pretty is that? Does that not look like spring? Makes me so happy. And they have these fun black centers. I'm going to put that right up at the top. That's so pretty. And next, I'm going to layer in maybe a couple more tulips, and we'll move on to our roses. And just build that arrangement, thinking about your different shapes, your different textures. Sort of like painting, but with plants. And the most cool part is that you get to experiment and really make it your own. I've got a few roses. This is usually how a rose will come straight from the store. Sometimes you have little petals that have been damaged, and you can just peel those right off. And then the leaves, I usually peel off most of the leaves unless it's one at the tippy top, and that helps these last a really long time. I'm gonna put that right there. And this is kind of the fun part where you just get to experiment. And if you put something somewhere and you like it, that's awesome. But if you don't like it, you can just slide it right out and move it to a new spot. Does anyone have any questions? Are we having fun?
Yes.
This is making me really excited. I don't know. I don't think anyone could send me flowers that's pretty. Can you believe they came from the grocery store?
Wow.
This guy, he's got that fun vertical that we want to put in there in that cone shape. and his name is Veronica. I guess it's a lady. Her name is Veronica. And I'm going to peel off most of these leaves because they will get in my way. But I really like the shape of that white cone flower. Think about mixing some colors in there since we've got our pinks and our greens. Let's add a neutral. While I have a moment, I told y'all I would give you a tip about this can. You can grab any sort of clear glass and sit it right down into your cans and fill that with water. And this makes the perfect little miniature arrangement that you can fill with all of your scraps. So as you're cutting and trimming, if you make an oops or you're just not sure about one, you can usually get quite a few arrangements out of this many flowers for sure. So that's kind of my handy tip for smaller vessels. But we're just going to keep going. I think we'll try some of these carnations. Carnations are really good for lots of different types of arrangements because they have so many different stems on one plant. So you can trim those off, put them in a nice little bud vase or something for the bathroom, and then you've still got plenty of blooms at the top to put in your arrangement. Y'all may ask, where did I learn about flowers? Well, my grandma was the florist for our church. And on lots of Saturdays, she made me sit on the chest freezer in the storage room and help her trim plants and put little spikes on plants to have the Sunday flower arrangement ready. And that's kind of where I got my passion for flowers. I think it's really relaxing. We all need that right now. And I really like to stuff the vase full, so I like to fill it up. Does anyone have any questions while they're watching? Or a fun memory from the College of Education that they would like to share?
I guess we're all quiet today, Anna.
That's okay. You might be tired. It's the middle of the week. I'm just going to grab some of these different ones and put them over so I can use them. Let's add a couple of these.
Anna, how long did you expect?
Go ahead.
Anna.
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Expect an arrangement.
So this can last well over a week. Can you hear me, Miss Sherry? And so if you change the water every other day, this could last, it could last over a week. And I will tell you that I use Trader Joe's flowers for my roommate's actual bridal bouquet that I made for her. And she changed the water every day and it lasted 3 weeks.
And do you re-put the little packet of powder?
I would probably put a new package of food at least once a week.
Okay.
And if it's a big arrangement.
What do you find
Go ahead.
What do you find are the longest flowers to stay the longest?
Yep. So eucalyptus lasts a really long time. That is a great greenery base. And in fact, you can dry it and it will last forever. Dried, just about. Another one that can last a really long time is, let me think for a second, stock. It's just called stock. It comes in pink and purple and white, and it will last probably 2 weeks, I would say. You can also dry that. There's another one that starts with an S. Its name is escaping me, but it's purple and it's almost like a papery texture, and that will last your whole life. Mom has had a vase of that at home for over a year, and it's dried and it's still very purple and beautiful. But I'll have to email you the name of that one. But roses, even, I would say roses, you can get definitely 2 weeks out of them if you change the water regularly. And if you buy them when they're in that tight bud stage. And a lot of times when I arrange everything almost like these tulips in that tight stage. And then over the course of the next week, they'll open up and be really beautiful. But really the thing that plants love the most is fresh water and a good trim. So this one, because I've got that spiky frog in the bottom, it would be hard to do. But something I would do if it's just in a vase without that, just grab them all up like this, like a bouquet, give the whole bottoms a good trim. And if you trimmed them once a week, it could last 2 weeks for sure. Thank you for that wonderful question, Miss Sherry.
My favorite flower at Trader Joe's that lasts so very long are the hydrangeas.
They do. And a hydrangea trick is if they get wilty, you can take them out of the vase and dip them in some hot water. And that'll puff them right back up.
Good to know.
That's a little hydrangea trick. My grandma says put a penny in the bottom of the vase. I don't know if that's real or if that's not, but sometimes I do it and it makes me think it lasts longer. These will last forever. These are called Crispidia, and they will just dry like little yellow pom-poms. I'm going to stick a few of those around. Any other questions from the group? Over the summer, I got to take a flower class with a florist master. She's from New York City. She's done arrangements for all kinds of famous people. And she taught us how to make arrangements that looked like Dutch still life paintings. And it was one of the coolest things I've ever done. So I highly recommend, if this is at all fun to you or anything you want to try as a hobby, just kind of explore. There's all kinds of flowers in the world, and I think flowers make people really happy. These yellow guys right here. Flip that back so you can see it. So I've added these little Crispidia balls. They are pretty funky, but we'll keep them. I've added some of these forsythia branches, and over the course of the week, they will turn bright yellow. This is Alestromeria. I usually peel the bottom plants off, and it seems like we might have a little spider friend in there. So I'm gonna politely nudge him into my scrap bucket. And add these in. I'm starting to get kind of full in here. We'll do a few more of these. I hope this inspires you to just go to the store and experiment. I think since we're in the College of Education, we can appreciate what the importance of being a lifelong learner is. And I think it's good to try stuff that you don't know how to do. It really stretches you. I know I'm preaching to the choir. Y'all all know that. Okay, this guy, he's getting pretty full. So I think it might be time for me to say complete. But I would love to see if any of you, I'll give it a good spin around so you can see. But we've got all kinds of spring colors. I think there's a few spots I might go fill in, like this spot might need a rose. It's kind of empty, but this is why those Lazy Susans are so helpful. So you can turn it around and kind of see where you've maybe overfilled or underfilled. And it really, I will tell you, sometimes when I'm working on an arrangement, I will like how it's going. And sometimes I'll dump the whole thing out and start over. So don't ever feel like you're not doing it right, because your brain will just kind of tell you when you like what you see. Few more. And if any of you are creating along with me, I'd love to see what you're working on. And if not, and you just have some questions, we'll have time for those too. I can already tell you I'm liking this a little better. Sometimes it just takes some fiddling. That might be the final go. So this is how mine turned out.
Wow, looks great.
And I would say truly with what I used in the bucket, what's still in the bucket and what's in the vase, this is probably, in total, this is about $50 worth of flowers. So you think about when you order flowers from the florist, and yes, sometimes you want to do that because it's like sometimes you just don't want to fool with it. And then I do that myself. I have my own local florist I love to support. But to think about kind of the bang for your buck when you work on it at home and you get those endorphins going, you're relaxed, like this is pretty good, because you could definitely make with this bucket, show you my bucket. This is how many I have left. I could make 2 or 3 more. So that's exciting. But sometimes you just want to pay to have some help. Does anyone else have an arrangement that they worked on while we were in our class? No, Miss Donna's up there working away.
That's good.
Look at that. She's got her daisies. I think she's got some mums. That's awesome. I love those green leaves.
Yeah. Good.
Got a lot of movement. So it's like dancing.
Yes.
Did anyone else have one that they worked on? Nope. Well, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. And if not, I really enjoyed spending the evening with all of you.
It was fun.
Thank you, Anna. You did a great job. Fun.
Thank you,
It
Miss
was fun.
Sherry.
And I
Thank
learned-
you all of us for thank you all for joining us. It really means a lot. I know this year it's been difficult. We haven't had all of our typical alumni events, and we're working on just doing what we can to see your smiling faces and hear your voices that we love. So as y'all, I didn't properly introduce that myself. I guess I'm Anna Westbury, the College of Education Alumni Relations Coordinator. And my job is to make friends with all of y'all. So I hope we did a little bit of that tonight. And if you ever need anything from the College of Education, I am more than happy to help.
Great. This is a good class.
Thank you, Anna. You're wonderful.
Thank you, Miss Donna. Well, if you have any questions, I'll hang out here for a minute. And if you're ready to go have some ice cream or a glass of wine, then I hope you have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Miss Anna.
Thank you, Miss Sherry.
Bye.
Bye.
I do have one question about
Yes, ma'am.
the tape. What do you do with that exactly?
So the tape, if you want to give yourself a grid to start with, you can just tape it like an X or like a tic-tac-toe board on the top of your vessel. And that will, this one, it's not sticking very well. Sometimes it's tricky to get it to stick. And some of the tape, different tape brands stick better than others. But once you get it to stick on there, it gives your flower something to rest up against. So sometimes when you're putting, especially if you have a big vase, you put your flowers in and they all like, whoop. And so if you have those grid lines, it really helps you keep things standing up, and that gives you space to play around in the whole vase.
It goes on the top.
Right on the top, just up across the edge, kind of just like this.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And down the side, Joe. Okay. Perfect. Good. That's a good new thing.
And I usually put it on when I'm starting, and then when I've finished and everything's sturdy, kind of like this, staying straight, I just kind of peel off the edge. So it sometimes stays still in the center, but then you don't see that green line of tape.
Right.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been really good.
I'm glad you joined us.
Yes, I liked it. Really enjoyed it.
Anna, this is Althea. I'm very new at this. Actually, it's my first time. So I picked flowers because I like the colors. And I didn't have a lot of greenery or a lot of hanging over flowers. Are there some basic things that you think every flower arrangement should have?
So that's a good question, but it's really up to you. Flowers are kind of like paintings. So some people like more modern art, and I love Dutch still life. So to me, if it looks like a photograph, but it's a painting, that just blows my mind. But I do think greenery adds that kind of earthy element to your vases and to your arrangements, but you don't always have to buy it. I love to use fresh rosemary in my arrangements. It smells really great. And I have a giant rosemary bush in the backyard. And sometimes instead of going out and buying eucalyptus, I'll just go to the backyard and trim a bunch of rosemary and stick it right in.
Oh, wow.
So think of what's, I do love buying flowers, of course, and the beautiful color blooms, but I love to think about what's in my neighborhood. I have a park across the street, and I'll trim camellias and just trim kind of what's in the backyard and make an arrangement, because the flowers, they make us happy when we bring them into our house. And I don't think you need to spend a lot of money to make anything too fancy. You know, it's fun to treat yourself sometimes, but sometimes just a backyard bouquet is nice.
Right. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
But I do think when you think about the variety of your shapes, that does help. It brings more movement to your arrangements. I don't know if I quite answered your question, but
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes, you did.
okay. Anyone else?
Thank you for doing this. It's a wonderful thing.
Thank you, Miss Donna.
Learned a lot.
Well, if everyone is happy and you enjoyed your evening, I'm going to go ahead and end our class, and I'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank
Hannah.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hannah.
Oh, that's great.
Ta-da. I did it. I did it.